Yeah, welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we're treating human inheritance and genetic disorder. So first off, we'll start with an introduction that tries to define human inheritance. So human inheritance is a process by which genetic information is passed from parents to offspring. This process is governed by the principle of heredity as first outlined by Gregor Mendel. So in our previous lesson, we talked about Gregor Mendel and his laws, where we mentioned the law of independent assortment of gene and also the law of segregation. So human inheritance is like a continuation of that lesson, and this is trying to talk about how genetic information is being passed from parents to offspring. So genetic disorder arises when mutation or abnormalities affects genes or chromosomes, potentially leading to various health conditions. So when you hear the word genetic disorder, it means a form of mutation or disorder that has occurred to the genes of parents, and such that it will lead to an alteration or a distortion in the traits or characteristics in the offspring. So let's move forward to see what we have. So first I will be explaining what genes are. Genes are basic units of heredity and are located in chromosomes. So from our previous lesson, I remember talking about how alleles are always sent from individual parents to form the offspring for each trait. So genes also, we have here that they are basic units of heredity and are located on chromosomes. So each individual inherits two alleles, as I just mentioned, for each gene. So each gene is made up of two alleles, one from each parent. These alleles can be dominant or recessive, that it could be the one that are more pronounced in the offspring, or they have more ability to stand out, or recessive, meaning that they have less ability to stand out. So they could be dominant or recessive. So dominant alleles express their traits even if only one copy is present. So while recessive gene or recessive alleles require both copies to be present to be expressed. So what does this mean? It means if a parent probably has a dominant gene or allele rather, that dominant allele, so long as it is one that is deposited in as a trait, or so long as it's one that is deposited in regards to one trait, as many parents probably the father has a dominant allele and he deposits his own dominant allele to the offspring, while the other parent or the mother did not really have a dominant allele for that particular trait. The father's dominant, just one of that father's dominant allele would impose itself on the child, on the child. So if it's recessive gene, before a recessive gene, or sorry, a recessive allele will be pronounced in a child, it has to be that recessive allele was duplicated. That's the mother has the same allele and the father has the same allele. But if there is a dominant allele that is present in that particular trait, that dominant one will overshadow the recessive one. So that's actually what dominance and recessiveness mean. So inheritance pattern in humans include autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, X-linked dominant, and X-linked recessive patterns. So these patterns determine how traits and disorders are transmitted across generations. For example, hemophilia is well known as X-linked recessive, and it affects males more than female. So we also have that there are different types of genetic disorder. So from the beginning of this lesson, I was mentioning that there are something like genetic mutation or genetic disorder that is formed by mutation or different types of distortion in the gene or alleles. So now we have these three types of genetic disorder. We have single gene disorder, we have chromosomal disorder, and we also have multifactorial disorder. So for single gene disorder, it's disorder that is caused by mutation in a single gene, such as cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia, while chromosome disorder is the kind of condition where we have chromosomes, or we have a number of, is a condition that is due to chromosome number or structural abnormalities like Down syndrome. So that's an example of chromosomal disorder. So it's a condition that is caused by chromosome number or different structure of the chromosome. So we also have a multifactorial disorder. So this one is as a result of interaction between multi genes and environmental influence. So this is a kind of disorder that happens not just by the gene but also by environmental effects. So there are different causes for this kind of disorder. So moving on, we see that multifactorial disorder, it involves interaction between multiple genes and environmental factors, and this kind of multifactorial disorder is disorders like diabetes, heart disease, and some cancer. And this one, they fall into this category of multifactorial disorder. So understanding this pattern help in genetic counseling and risk assessment for families. So advancements in genetic testing and counseling provides tools for early detection and management of genetic disorder. Parental testing, carrier screening, and newborn screening are common, and these are used to identify genetic risks and conditions before symptoms arise. So currently, in the past, probably they will see some of all these disorders in children and they will probably accredit it to something else. But now, with the current advancement in technology or biotechnology, we can test parents before they give birth to children, test parents, both parents, and get a probability of possibilities that could be replicated on their offsprings. So that's actually the kind of thing that happen where they'll tell you, okay, if you are an AS or AA, you should not marry this person, and or if you are an AS and AS, it's risky to give birth or to marry. An AS is risky to marry an AS because there's a chance that they could give birth to an SS, though the chance is slim. So these are as a result of this advancement and this kind of study, we've been able to make this kind of prediction and even tell the genes of or the even the genotypes of offsprings. So in conclusion, human inheritance follow identifiable patterns that helps to predict the likelihood of traits and also disorders that could appear in offspring. So by this understanding, we can be able to predict the offspring's traits and also give genetic counseling to diagnose disorder or possible errors that could happen in the child's gene. So this will be the end of this this lesson, and I will saying goodbye.